if I understand correctly, and I can understand the logic behind why you had the shoulders and arms day between the chest and
Yeah, you
back
got it.
and the legs day, is because of deadlifts.
Not only that is because if you think chest and back workout is really hard and heavy, and you've got deadlifts in there also. Now, shoulders and arms, no matter how heavy or hard you're going at them,
That's
it's
true.
nowhere near as hard on your nervous system. On that bucket inside your system, it's not going to overspill. So you get a chance to recover a bit. And also then you recover from the workout because you've got Sunday and Monday to recover before you hit it hard again.
That
Again,
makes
it's all,
sense.
all pictured out.
The legs is going to be by far the hardest to recover from. The
Yeah,
2 extra
yeah,
days of rest makes a difference
yeah.
there.
Do the trick.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
wonderful. With what you're mentioning here, as far as your training, I've been experimenting with just hitting body parts 1 time per week directly.
yeah, yeah.
And my recovery is better. I feel better. My progress is better. And I'm like, well, why am I not just going to just stick with this then? But it's funny how, depending on who I speak with, oh, they have an amazing physique and they might even be a guest on the show. And they're talking about how they hit body parts 2 times per week. And then you get this wild hair. You're like, maybe I should try going back to that. But no, because I know from experience that anytime I try to do something like that with the way I train and my life stressors and how I do things, I can't recover from it. So I love just speaking with all of you guys because you can see the differences. And yes, this person built an amazing physique, but so did this one. This person trains 3 days per week, and this person trains 6. Okay, maybe even execution, if you look at the way they're training, it might even be similar intensities. They might even be doing things really well on both ends. Yet it's just this person can recover from this amount, this person can recover from that amount, that they're both getting amazing results. It's one of these things where a lot of trial and error has to go into figuring out how can you make this for you and about
How
you.
can you make this work? Yeah. I mean, when I
Yeah.
first started, I probably trained a lot when I first started because when I got into training, I started doing something at 10-year-old and then started training with weights at 13. And to begin with, I was running and training every night before I went to school, after school, running 10 miles at a clip as well. In between that, eating as much food and drinking as much milk as I could. But I ended up with a nice, lean, ripped physique. But as the years went on, I realized that I needed to think things through a lot more. And I quite often say to my son Lewis, it's not who trains the hardest and who diets the hardest, it's who's the smartest. You've got to actually think about what you're doing. And I've got, I mentioned to you earlier about my stomach problem every now and again when I feel overtrained. Now I've got diaries, logbooks since I started at 17. I wish I'd started writing them at 13 and 14, but I've got them to this day. I've still got them. So obviously there's a lot of them because I'm 58 now. So the 40 something years worth of diaries and logbooks, and I can look through them and I know when I've gone too far. So again, that gives me the feedback to understand what worked. And then when I mentioned Brooks Kubik, when I read his book Dinosaur Training, when it was basically about sticking to the basics and not training a great deal, it sort of like resonated with me. And I thought, oh, you know what? I've tried everything else and I tried that and that just basic progression of getting stronger. You can't keep getting stronger forever, but yeah, you're going to max out on your potential. And I maxed out on my growth potential and I aren't going to get any bigger now. All I'm going to do is get back muscle I've had in the past. I've never weighed on stage any more than, well, I weighed 150 once, but weren't quite as ripped. And I weighed 143 to 147 when I was really shredded at the Worlds and other competitions. So I've only ever weighed about that much weight, which is similar to Tamar. He's another, the Magic Egyptian, he's another one what's inspired me massively.
Right. Yes, absolutely. How tall are you, first of all, Ian?
5'3".
5'3". So that weight makes a lot of sense. If anything, that's very impressive for your height. Very impressive. Yeah. So I have a few questions here regarding the training from the chest and back day to the shoulders and arms day. Did you ever have any issues as far as recovery wise, or did you notice anything that the pressing, for example, on the chest and back day, and then having to do presses on the Thursday, so with only 1 day of rest in between, did you notice anything negative with that?
No.
Okay,
No,
great.
I didn't notice anything with that. I think it's because the volume was kept quite low. That's probably why. If I'd have had an issue with it, I would move the days. I would have like swapped probably the leg one and maybe put deadlifts with it. That you could do that. Again, this is where you've got to sometimes think what works for your body, because you might bench press and have longer levers. Your setup might not be quite as good, so you're having to stabilize it a lot more because you're not nipping your shoulder blades down with it. It can be a myriad of things, what could cause problems. So that's why you've got to think for yourself, really. You've got to have, like I mentioned earlier, the principles. Once you've got those basic principles, then you can fit things in. As I say, what I do is I jokingly again say, look, put what I need to have in my bucket, and I can add and take away whatever I want out of that. So it's my own then. And I admire lots of bodybuilders, and I've learned from many bodybuilders as well. I think to myself now, how how does this fit into my principles? That's what I tend to
Right.
ask myself all the time.
Brilliant. Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Like, for example, for those listening, for me, if I was to do even the amount of volume you did, and I've tested it to an extent, right? But if I was to do the 6 sets of presses, strictly
Yeah.
presses,
Yeah.
now keep in mind, depends on the machines I have access to. If I'm doing all my presses with body weight and dumbbells or barbells, I can see myself running into problems on the Thursday. If I did that on Tuesday, the chest and back, on Thursday with doing any sort of overhead pressing, at least long term. Maybe I can get away with it for a few workouts, but I know from experience, injury history, my personal body and what I can recover from, that I could run into some potential drawbacks with that. So I would just do lateral raises then, and everything else is the same. I keep my arms, but I'll have to reduce the pressing. So yeah, I would do push downs instead of close grip presses, but that's for me, right? Like I know from my own body, right? So
you've taken the basics of what I've said to you and you've adapted it to yourself. Like Bruce Lee said, use what's useful to you. You know, take what's useful to you and use that. Make that your own.
Yeah, and the reason I brought it up is for those listening who might be getting into it, who might be getting inspired right now. It's so important that you do make it your own. And I think that's what you're nailing home here and what I'm trying to highlight even more, because it's the most important thing, because it sucks to learn that the hard way, even though most of us do. That's just the way it goes sometimes, especially those who are very competitive by nature. They are more stubborn. They want to do things to the best of their abilities and they think more is better, or this person looks the best, so it must be doing something right. Yeah, something right for them, right? So it's a tricky thing for especially younger demographics to wrap their head around, but I'm glad that we're speaking on this because it's important.
You see, every top champion bodybuilder, they've all got something a little bit different. There's loads of different ways to train, and like you mentioned earlier, lots of people all train different ways, and it confuses you to a degree. But you know, something will come along where this bodybuilder will do something, and yet it's really simple and basic. But that person is, like you said, has developed it to the self. There's a lot of things I don't agree with bodybuilders these days. You know, some of the natural bodybuilders, but that's because it doesn't agree with me. Not that they're not doing anything wrong.
Let's say that you're in a situation now, like you mentioned, where you're at your peak. I don't like to say it like this, but it is true. Like if you're in your 30s or 40s, your recovery is going to be different than in your 50s and 60s, right? That's just a given. Assuming that the stress was also similar in both times. For you, what would you say is the most amount of training that you were able to recover from and that you saw the best gains from?